The DNA test my husband's family tried to hide. The moment that changed my life forever began with a simple envelope. Have you ever opened something so small, yet felt like it could destroy everything you know? My hands were shaking as I stared at the white envelope on the kitchen table. It contained the results of a DNA test I had taken a few weeks earlier. I thought it would be something fun, maybe a way to learn about my ancestry since I grew up without knowing much about my biological family. But before I could open it, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother-in-law appeared on the screen. "Don't open it. Please." My heart skipped a beat. How did she know? And why would she care whether I opened my own DNA test results? For a moment I just stood there, staring at the message, feeling a strange chill crawl up my spine. Something about the urgency in her words made me uneasy. But curiosity is a powerful thing. And deep down, I already sensed that whatever was inside that envelope, someone didn't want me to see it. So I opened it. And the moment I read the results, my entire world started to collapse. Underscore 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 underscore. 8 years earlier, I met my husband, Daniel, at a friend's birthday party. He was the kind of person people felt comfortable around immediately. Warm smile, calm voice, and a quiet confidence that made you feel safe. We talked for hours that night, and before I knew it, we were seeing each other almost every day. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. Daniel used to joke that I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. I felt the same way. After growing up in foster care, moving from one home to another, never really feeling like I belonged anywhere, being with Daniel felt like finally finding a place where I mattered. When he proposed 2 years later, I didn't hesitate. His family, however, was different. The first time I met them, something felt slightly off. His mother, Margaret, greeted me politely but kept studying my face in a way that made me uncomfortable. Not in a rude way, more like she was trying to recognize something. His father was quiet, barely speaking during dinner. Whenever I tried to ask him questions about the family or their history, he would give short answers and quickly change the subject. At first, I thought maybe they were just protective of Daniel. After all, I came from nowhere. No well-known family name. No long family history. Just a girl who grew up in foster homes with a file of incomplete records. But over the years, certain moments began to feel strange. Margaret would sometimes stare at me for a few seconds too long. Once she said, "Your eyes look so familiar." I laughed and asked, "Familiar how?" But she immediately shook her head and said, "Oh, never mind." Another time, we were looking through old family photo albums. I noticed something odd. There was a gap of several years where almost no photos existed. When I asked about it, Daniel quickly closed the album and said, "Those were busy years for my parents." I didn't think much of it then. But now, looking back, I realize those moments were clues. Clues I didn't understand yet. Underscore 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 underscore. Last year, my friend Rachel decided to take a DNA test. She was curious about her ancestry and kept telling me how fascinating the results were. She discovered distant relatives in countries she had never even visited. You should do one too, she told me. Especially since you don't know much about your biological family. She had a point. I had always wondered where I came from. The adoption records from my childhood were vague. My biological mother had left very little information. My father's name wasn't even listed. For most of my life, that mystery had quietly followed me. So one evening, I mentioned the idea to Daniel. I'm thinking about taking a DNA test, I said casually. Daniel froze for a moment. Just a moment. But I noticed. Then he forced a smile. If you want to, he said. His voice sounded slightly tense, but I assumed he just didn't care much about ancestry tests. A week later, the kit arrived. It was simple, just a small tube for a saliva sample and a prepaid envelope to send it back. When I opened the box, Daniel watched me carefully. You sure you want to do that? He asked. I laughed. Why not? He hesitated before replying. I don't know, sometimes those tests reveal things people weren't expecting. I teased him. Relax. The biggest surprise will probably be that I'm 3% Viking or something. He didn't laugh. That should have been my second clue. Underscore 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 underscore. I sent the sample off and forgot about it for a while. Life continued normally. Until the phone call from Margaret. It happened about 2 weeks after I mailed the test. Her voice sounded unusually serious. Did you send a DNA test recently? She asked. My stomach dropped. How did you know that? She paused. I just heard about it. That answer didn't make sense. I hadn't told anyone except Daniel. Why? I asked. Her voice lowered. You shouldn't do that kind of test. I laughed nervously. It's just for ancestry. She replied quietly. Some truths are better left unknown. The call ended shortly after that. For the first time, I felt uneasy about the test. Still, I told myself I was overthinking things. 3 weeks later, the results arrived. Underscore 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 underscore. Which brings us back to the envelope on the kitchen table. The envelope Margaret begged me not to open. My hands trembled as I pulled the paper out. At first, everything looked normal: percentages of ancestry, possible regions, distant relatives. Then I saw the section labeled close family matches. There was only one name listed. Daniel. Relationship: immediate family member. At first, I assumed it meant spouse. But the explanation below said something different. Genetic relationship suggests sibling or half-sibling. I read the sentence again. And again. My mind refused to accept it. That's when Daniel walked into the kitchen. He saw my face and immediately stopped. "You opened it," he said. I slowly handed him the paper. He looked at the results for a few seconds. Then he closed his eyes. And in that moment, I knew. He already knew. "You knew about this," I whispered. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he sat down and buried his face in his hands. "I'm sorry." The words felt like knives. "Sorry for what?" I asked. He took a deep breath. Years before Daniel and I met, his father had an affair. The woman became pregnant. The family paid her to keep quiet. The baby was placed into foster care. My heart started pounding. "That baby," I said slowly. Daniel nodded. "It was you." The room felt like it was spinning. "So you knew?" I asked. "Not at first," he said quickly. "I found out later." Apparently, after Daniel and I had already started dating, his mother began to suspect something. She said I looked familiar. Eventually, they secretly tested a strand of my hair. The DNA confirmed their fears. But instead of telling me, they chose silence. "Why?" I demanded. Daniel looked devastated. "Because we loved each other." I laughed bitterly. "You mean because you were selfish?" He tried to explain that he planned to tell me many times but never found the courage. Each day he waited, the truth became harder to reveal. And eventually, it was too late. The man I married, the man I trusted, was also the man who shared my father's blood. His entire family knew. And they all stayed silent. When Margaret texted me that morning begging me not to open the envelope, it wasn't because she was worried about my feelings. It was because she was terrified that the secret they had buried for decades was about to be exposed. And thanks to a simple DNA test, it finally was.